45 minutes or so to provide a window to all of you into Darul Qasim. As many of you are aware that we received a very important kind of milestone for Darul Qasim in the Illinois Board of Higher Education granting us a license to operate as a college. And we received this license about a month and a half ago. And so we felt it was a good time for you as some of the active people within Darul Qasim, the regular attendees of Sheikh Amin's very long ongoing tafsir program, to provide you a little bit of a window into Darul Qasim, and we thought it would also be a good way to introduce to you kind of some of the three critical elements that make up Darul Qasim as an institution. So this morning you're going to hear from one of our faculty members, Maulana Bilal Ali Ansari. Maulana Bilal has been with Darul Qasim for over a decade, which doesn't seem like, it seems like yesterday, Maulana. But time does go by very quickly. For 12 years, Maulana Bilal has been dedicated to Darul Qasim, to the teaching of the students here. He currently serves as the head of our Department of Hadith and has been instrumental both in developing our programs for the students as well as our overall curriculum. So Maulana Bilal will be starting us off with a presentation on our current programs and to give you some insights into that. Maulana Bilal will be followed by Hafiz Noman. Hafiz Noman is based in Knoxville. He's also been with Darul Qasim for over 12 years. MashaAllah, Hafiz Noman has served in numerous administrative capabilities or numerous administrative positions within Darul Qasim. He helped us build up our registrar office, and currently he's serving as a national coordinator for several of our programs. And so Hafiz Noman will provide a little bit of insight into how we actually operate as Darul Qasim College and to help us kind of understand how we've come to this point. And then for the last part of the presentation, I will give you a summary of kind of our future steps, where we're hoping to focus within the next 1 to 5 years, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers. So with that brief introduction, I will ask Maulana Bilal to come forward.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. Bismillah walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidil anbiya rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. First and foremost, ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to Darul Qasim. We can now call it college, Darul Qasim College. MashaAllah, I see a lot of familiar faces, but despite the familiarity that many of you will have with the institution as a whole, it's interesting to sometimes appreciate that within the institution also, we don't necessarily know all the nuances and the details of what's going on, even across programs. So my attempt here will be briefly to introduce you to some of the programs and then also to try to discuss the breadth of programs that are being offered at Darul Qasim. And this probably will still not cover everything. So here at the main campus, we offer the variety of programs. We have at least 5 main programs. The very essential level is what we call the Islamic Essentials online program, which is primarily aimed at high school age students. It's the only program that we offer at the high school level, but also income is inclusive of students of all age groups. And this is actually intended to not only cover Islamic law and maybe even Aqidah, but also to provide a lens by which Muslims can view the world. So you have a lot of students at the high school level who are still trying to navigate life and view the world through an epistemology that is Islamic in nature. So the Islamic Essentials program, what I've just briefly labeled here the Essentials level, is addressing students at that level and providing services before even they come here on campus and participate in in-person programs. We have a prerequisites level, which we have a full-time program called the Sheikh al-Hind. The full-time 1-year Sheikh al-Hind program is also here on campus, and it prepares students for intermediate and advanced studies. It consists of primarily the study of the Arabic language, developing proficiency, reading comprehension, but also familiarizing yourself with the terminologies and the nomenclature of the Islamic sciences. So, hadith, fiqh, kalam, hadith, fiqh, kalam, and Quran, right? So all of the terminologies within those sciences, without getting into too much depth, what is abrogation? What is ijtihad? What are the four schools? Who are the major figures? And then also like, tajweed. So improvement of tajweed. And then there's a part-time option at that same level, which is offered on the weekends, on Saturday mornings, and then also in the evenings, either or. So we have quite a robust program for students who are interested in the entry level to get into the field of Islamic studies, but are not able to even commit full time. But there is a really rich full-time program, a 1-year intensive program called the Sheikh al-Hind program, that is actually the largest class that we are offering that we have here at Darul Qasim. Beyond that, we have an intermediate level 4-year full-time program. And that 4-year full-time program consists of a wide variety of topics. And this is something I think that a lot of us maybe can learn more and more about as we learn about the Islamic sciences. I think for a lot of people, Islamic studies is really just like an advanced Hifz program or an advanced Maktab program, a glorified, Nazira program. But actually, intermediate level Islamic studies consists of what was taught in the Muslim world, in the classical pre-modern Muslim world, to prepare people for engagement in government level programs, in working in offices, to become a cleric. So in the Mughal Empire, if you were like a Munshi Fadil, or you were a Munshi, or you're Alim Fadil, a lot of the type of material that you were covering was actually quite sophisticated. So it was theology, legal theory, dialectics, philosophy. You were covering debate. And so intermediate level is full of a wide range of topics, not just Quran and Hadith, but also the rational sciences. And then we have a 3-year advanced level program here. What's unique about our advanced level studies is that we have a 2-year Hadith intensive program, where in other institutions you might find them as 1-year condensed. We have like a 2-year program, and then that's followed by like a completion year in which you cover very high level advanced classes in language, in philosophy, in advanced dialectics and Islamic theology, research and methodology classes, so that students are able to write theses at the end of the advanced program and they prepare one. And then we have specialization level programs. We're currently offering 2, the IFTA program, which prepares students to be able to answer questions of a legal nature. And we'll talk a little more about that later. And then the tafsir specialization was launched this year. And then in the future, hopefully next year or in the near future, we'll be able to offer a hadith specialization, formal hadith specialization or takhasus, as well as a kalam specialization. We also have other programs. Just one I thought was interesting, and some of you are familiar with these programs. We have working committees that work on bioethics discussions, publish papers, discuss various aspects of legal ethics and technology ethics or techno ethics and IT ethics. And this is something also relatively unique. You don't find this necessarily popular in many programs similar to Darul Qasim. Darul Qasim is a unique program, so you really can't compare it. But these ethics initiatives are highly in demand, and alhamdulillah, Darul Qasim has not only the vision to offer it, but is now offering it. And I think this is something I really see as important to highlight here, is that Darul Qasim, even before 2000, when it was established formally, there was a vision behind it, the vision of the founder, and everything was sort of planned in a systematic way. And we're seeing over time, in the last 12 years or so, just to see how that has kind of borne fruit, and how we're on that path, and we've accomplished everything in a way that was planned. So where we are now and the discussions that we're having are not just coincidental. That now at Darul Qasim you have physicians and you have lawyers and you have IT specialists sitting with scholars and having these questions on ethics and resolving these issues. Or we have publications taking place. We have now, mashallah, been licensed to operate as a college. This is all intentional. This is all planned. But there's a lot further that we need to go. The need really, especially in not only the Western world, but all over the world, is to refocus a lot of our attention on certain aspects of Islamic education that I think are sort of a value statement for Darul Qasim. It highlights what we emphasize and what we want to revive, especially within the Islamic intellectual tradition. These were aspects of studies that I think require our attention and some degree of revival. In particular, a focus on theology and the study of Islamic theology. And not just that, but proficiency, to be able to articulate Islamic theological concepts in a modern setting. Discussing legal theory or usul al-fiqh, right? As opposed to simply have some working knowledge of the science, but to be so engaged in it and to have students be so proficient that they can engage in modern legal theoretical discussions and discuss legal ethics, right? And sit with lawyers today who have questions on legal ethics and to be able to have that conversation in a common language. At Darul Qasim, we also really emphasized, bringing back the rational sciences into the curriculum, whereas oftentimes it's assumed that if you're getting a good high school, college education, you only need to supplement it with the sacred sciences. Whereas we see now that, I went to high school here, we didn't learn any of the rational sciences for the most part, right? There's no philosophy, there's no logic, there's no dialectics, there's no debate. And so this was actually one of the unique aspects of Islamic educational systems. So we've brought that back, we've brought some of those classic works back, and also re-emphasized the focus on some of these sciences. So dialectics, debate, logic, philosophy, both from the Islamic tradition, but also the Greco-Roman traditions. And then we have a humanities department here, is also relatively unique, in which we have a variety of course offerings in Islamic history, as well as a critical view of Western civilization. We have research methodology classes where we have trained doctorates or doctors in Middle Eastern studies and anthropology who supervise and teach research methodology in the advanced program. And then we have advanced Quran and Hadith studies here, where we have now a specialization in tafsir, very unique. And I was actually just reading recently in the history of Darul Deoband, one of the specializations that had opened up many years ago, decades ago, almost a century ago, was at Takhasus fi Tafsir, but they weren't able to sustain it for a variety of reasons. So this is relatively unique to have a specialization in tafsir studies, as well as, inshallah, soon a specialization in hadith studies. And then we have a Darul Iftah. And the Darul Iftah, mashallah, does a lot of work behind the scenes. They've, up to date, in just a few years, have now written 1,100 plus fatwas on very unique topics. It's always something very enjoyable for me to walk into Darul Iftah and look at the board and what type of questions they're dealing with, gender dysphoria and artificial intelligence, questions that you typically don't really see people asking. Most of the questions are about personal law and marriage and divorce. And they also offer those services, so marriage and arbitration, auditing of companies, real estate planning, all those types of services are also offered in the Darul Iftah program. Contract drafting, arbitration, Sharia auditing, estate planning consultation, researching legal theory, and then 1,000 plus fatwas is no small amount, and not all of them are published, and that's why I kind of wanted to mention that there's a lot of the work that we don't necessarily see, but it's there and it's making an incredible impact, because I see some of the changes that makes in people's lives and how it's improved people's personal lives as well as in their businesses. The immediate next steps is to further develop these 4 core subjects at Darul Qasim: the Quran studies programs, the Hadith studies, law studies, and theology studies. We already have a tafsir program and then a specialization. We also have a certification in qira'at. So even before the advanced level, students who are hufad of Quran can enroll, enter into our qira'at program and get certified in various qira'at. Hadith studies that will launch soon, inshallah, which will include not only historical criticism and advanced studies in the theory and the manhaj al-naqd in hadith, but also manuscript research and editing and training in how to take classical manuscripts and edit them and publish them. In law studies, we have a Darul Iftah department, which does all of the aforementioned, provides those services. And then theology studies. And the theology studies, of course, is critical for any of the ethics discussions. So these are some of the immediate next steps for Darul Qasim. There's a lot more, inshallah ta'ala, that will be presented in the future, but also there's a lot more that I wasn't able to cover, right? Some of the impactful programs in different cities, some of the programs like the tafsir program on Sundays is actually really part of the larger program offering in academic programs at Darul Qasim. But this was kind of just in a nutshell, some of the more formal programs, some of the more full-time programs that are offered here at Darul Qasim. Jazakumullah khair.
With that, we're going to test our technology. We're going to bring Hafiz Naman on board from Knoxville. So please let me know when there you are, Hafiz Naman. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everyone can see and hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly. So Hafiz Naman, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will
All right.
be your AV assistant pushing your slides. So please go ahead.
Okay. Much appreciated. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for the introduction, Brother Hassan. I'm just going to jump right into it, but before I do, I just want to share a personal story about my background. I visited Sheikh Amin for the first time in 2010. I was working in aviation maintenance and workflow management. So I had a background in infrastructure and operations, workflow management. So Sheikh Amin told me, you know how to run an airport and do maintenance on an airplane and flow the entire maintenance and the overall of an airplane. I want you to now run a college. So I said, okay, let's do it. So fast forwarding now, alhamdulillah, 13 years in, what I do want to say, and the skill sets that I've developed from 2010 up until today were immense, where I thought I already knew a lot, but I actually learned so much more being with Sheikh Amin and developing Darul Qasim from Darul Qasim to Darul Qasim College. And one of the things that I do want to share of what I learned, and everyone at Darul Qasim arguably has learned, is that there is a vision that we all key in on, but then there's a focus that all of us have that feed into the vision. So if we take, for example, a picture just on our phones and we admire a picture on our phone and we zoom into that picture, we'll see a pixel and some colors. And that is the focus, right? The focus is in all these little details and these pixels and these colors coming together and merging them together, integrating them together. And then when you zoom back out, you see this beautiful picture. And the more detail there are in the picture, in these pixels, in these colors, the more we appreciate the picture and we appreciate how much work has been put into it. And that is kind of how I want us to see the infrastructure of Darul Qasim, that we see this picture called Darul Qasim College and all of the academic program offerings that Maulana Bilal shared with us. But behind the scene, there's an entire infrastructure, all these little pixels coming together with these different colors that expose what it is that we do. So that is one thing I learned, a skill set that I've developed and I continue to develop being with Sheikh Amin and being at Darul Qasim, is that we have to focus on the work. Darul Qasim is the manifestation of Sheikh Amin's scholarship. And I think that's something that we all need to think about for a minute, that mashallah, with the immense amount of knowledge that many scholars have, what we see in Sheikh Amin, what is the transition of this knowledge? And we see that as Darul Qasim. And that's a diagram that you see over there, that you have the president, and then you have all of these categories in the infrastructure. There's a very high scope division of the infrastructure of the Al-Qasim. There are many departments within and many people. We have over 100 people in the form of staff, faculty, volunteers, and representatives that are behind the scene in the infrastructure for us to be where we're at today. So I think today what I'm going to touch on, just so that everyone has a viewing window of the infrastructure of Darul Qasim, is how did we become Darul Qasim College? What happened behind the scenes? Starting with the president and then going from there to the board, and just talk briefly about the administration. And that's what I want to do today. So when we look at the board is there to ensure that the big decisions are made. Right, they're the ones who are honed in on the vision of Darul Qasim. They don't worry about the focal points and the nitty-gritty details. That's where the administration department is. So Sheikh Amin has given orientation and guidance to the board on how to implement the big goals of Darul Qasim, and from there it's streamlined through HR into the administrative team. HR being one of the main administrative teams that we have at Darul Qasim. So when we look at HR, what is it that HR provides the institution? We at Darul Qasim believe that Darul Qasim is a organization that is developed with its people. The more we invest in our people, the more we see the institution grow. And the more the institution grows, the people have to grow with it. So professional development is at the core of what we do at Darul Qasim. Where I was 10 years ago compared to where I am today is very, very different. The way I think, the way I focus, the way I organize myself has developed tremendously. And I say this for everyone who's been with us for a decade or even less, that 1 year to the next, HR is there in the forefront to ensure that we are developing as professionals. We are developing intellectually, and we are honed in our goals, those little pieces that make the big picture of Darul Qasim, which is our goal. So that's what HR is there for. They also drive our policies and document them. They're in the forefront of ensuring that the qualified people are sitting in the right places to do the job the best that they can. And everyone stays in their lane, and we integrate with one another to make this big goal of Darul Qasim. The next department I want to focus on that was instrumental in getting us to our short-term goal of becoming a college is the IT department. MashaAllah, we recently also hired an IT manager. There's a huge amount of resource that we pump into our IT, our infrastructure technology, information technology department. All the way, what we see in the front is the website, but what happens behind the scene is the IT department was instrumental in developing our student management system called MyQuest, which everyone is quite familiar with who's at Darul Qasim. And what we've also done is we've integrated our student management system where we have over 6,000 students in our database, and we want to grow it up to 40, 50,000 students, that it's capable of housing that many students within its database, is we've integrated it into Canvas, which is a learning management system for our students. And the goal of IT as a whole is to ensure that communication and integration and applications that we need for every department, interdepartment, and collaboration with other departments is seamless. That's a function of IT as a whole. And on the back of our infrastructure as a college, we also have the Department of Facility Management and Maintenance. It speaks for itself. You see the institution as it is right now. There's nothing like it that we see today. It is unique. It has the ambiance. It has the academic feel that we want to illustrate that represents the knowledge that is being delivered at Darul Qasim. So they do tremendous amount of work to ensure that the infrastructure supports the ambiance of a college. And inshallah, we have a lot of future plans for our facilities as we move forward into larger facilities and acquire more, inshallah, to represent the knowledge that we do want to deliver and the plans that we have. Another department that was instrumental in making us a college is the Accounts and Donor Management Department. The fact that we're a college, the accounting department speaks for itself. The amount of scrutiny that it takes in ensuring that all of the funding and transactions that come into Darul Qasim, whether it's a donation, whether it's tuition, whether it's scholarship or grants or endowment, whatever the source of revenue that is coming in is accounted for and scrutinized, it's categorized, and it's documented in a way that is seamless. And we have internal audits, we have external audits, and then vice versa, whatever funds that are going out and transacting out of Darul Qasim are accounted for, and all the checks and balances and approval processes are in place to ensure that the funds are allocated correctly. And that was instrumental in ensuring that we are now a college. The last department that I want to speak about today in the short time that we have is the Office of the Registrar. The Office of the Registrar is probably the core structure as far as ensuring that that made sure that we are a college today. The Office of the Registrar starts with the academic calendar. The academic calendar is what we all live by in Darul Qasim. All of our goals, all of our milestones, regardless of our departments, revolve around the academic calendar, which is in the hands of the registrar. From there, all of the programs that we have are codified, all the prerequisites are set, all of the descriptions and the requirements are documented through the Office of the Registrar. And on the back of that, we create our semester timetables. Well, we must appreciate that the Office of the Registrar, what they do with the timetable is incredible. To me, it's a piece of art, right? Because of the amount of work that is put into and the minute details that we have to factor in when we put the academic and when we put the timetable together for each semester is incredible. So just to give you an idea, there are currently 7 departments. There are currently 7 different programs, including our specializations that we're offering. there are 13 to 14 full-time faculty members and 4 to 5 TAs that we currently have on campus, and we have 8 classrooms. And now we have to put all of these years of studies together, all of these faculty members with the number of teaching hours they have, and all of these different program and the core content requirements. We got to put it all together on this sheet of paper, one piece of paper. In the morning, we have 50 courses that we teach in a week. In the evening, we have 30 classes that we teach in a week. And that is a fact. If you actually do the number counting on the piece of paper for the morning schedule, in the evening, you're going to reach up to about 50. So what I'm trying to say is that even as students and faculty hearing this, we did not realize that this is the amount of work that actually goes in behind the scene. And it does. And it's by design that people see it in a very subtle way. And the faculty and the students go to the classes they need to go to. And it's by design that you don't feel any of the stress of the work that goes on behind the scenes. And alhamdulillah, it gets done in a very efficient manner. So when we talk about Darul Qasim and the infrastructure of Darul Qasim, we should, one way of looking at it is a clock tower. When people look at a clock tower, you have tens and hundreds of thousands of people looking at a clock tower throughout the day, and they appreciate the function of the clock tower. It gives you the knowledge of time. It's fulfilling its function, and it's reliable. It never stops ticking. But I think what people don't normally stop to think about is what goes on behind the needles that tick. What causes the ticking of the clock, right? So when you actually think about it, there's a foundation. There's the structure, the beams, the nuts and bolts, and the welding, and the concrete, and all of the ornaments that surround it to beautify it, right? And all the stress testing that it goes through, and the flex and the ingenuity. And then you have the gears and the cogs and the different sizes and the function of the gear. And if anything is removed from the structure fails, right? The clock stops ticking. Everything has to work at every given moment. That is the amount of efficiency you need to have for a clock tower. So the infrastructure of Darul Qasim is all of those nuts and bolts, those gears, those cogs, the foundation, and so on and so forth that is happening that we normally don't think about. But what I want us to appreciate is that the greatest benefactor of Darul Qasim are our students, right? So just like the people who look at the time and appreciate the clock tower, our students are the one that appreciate Darul Qasim the most, and also our supporters and well-wishers, that they look at this time and appreciate it for what it is. So when we see the word Darul Qasim College, all of this is happening behind the scene for Darul Qasim to become a college and move on to become a university, inshallah. So just real quick, before I conclude on my last slide, we have some short-term goals in the next 1 to 5 years. Inshallah, Dr. Hassan will speak more about it, but I just want to let people know that when we do have an infrastructure at Al Qasim, we have to always think ahead. We not only have a 1 to 5 year old goal, we have a 10-year goal, we have a 15-year goal, we have a 50-year goal, we even have a 100-year goal at Darul Qasim. Our focus right now is not to overwhelm you, but to share our very short-term goals on the physical infrastructure of Darul Qasim. We want to be able to double our classroom sizes and double our square footage. Right now we're at 25,000, 24,000 square feet. We want to be about 50,000 square feet so that we can accommodate 500 full-time students. We want to transition our departments into colleges, and we also need to triple our staffing to support the accommodation of 500 full-time students every semester that are going to be at Darul Qasim, inshallah, in the next 1 to 5 years. In the digital infrastructure, we want to create an online learning platform for our English-speaking audience in the international market. We also want to further our ILS system and increase our digital library and digital publications as well. In the academic infrastructure, in the next 1 to 5 years, we want to increase our reach of research and presentation and publications. beyond what we're already doing in bioethics and technoethics and so on and so forth. We want to get into economics and finance as well in the next 1 to 5 years. We want to expand our programs. We want to not only have our master's degree in theology and Islamic law, but expand it into other specialization programs as well and apply for them and gain our application approval for other master's degrees as well. We want to apply for a PhD master's degree. We want to apply for a bachelor's degree in Islamic Studies as well, and also be able to offer instrumental sciences in humanities as well, so that we can get our bachelor's degree and start the application process for that in our academic infrastructure. Our intellectual infrastructure is already developed. It's called the Khulwadian paradigm. Some of you may have heard of this who are inside Darul Qasim. For those who are not at Darul Qasim, you have to study at Darul Qasim to appreciate Sheikh Amin's theory called the Khulwadian paradigm. It's an Islamic civilization code implementation on an individual, communal, national, and international level. So inshallah, I hope that all of you are interested in learning more about it. On the back of this paradigm, our programs are already developed on this paradigm, but we want to expand this. We want to have a Darul Qasim press. We want to have students' journal so that the students who learn about this paradigm and are learning these programs are able to showcase themselves of how they've benefited from Darul Qasim academically. So the students' journal is going to be a critical component for us to establish in the next 1 to 5 years. Also, in the next 1 to 5 years, we want to start our own book publications through our press and do book reviews of other academic work that is out there beyond Darul Qasim. And our big goal at Darul Qasim is that we want to be a think tank that influences policy change, right? For what reason? For the betterment of mankind, not only in this country, but everywhere in the world. That is the big goal of Darul Qasim, that we want to be the ones on the table to influence these policies so that we can make life better for mankind in this world and ultimately in the next world. May Allah guide us. May Allah enable us to do this work and be a part of it. And I ask at least all of us to make dua for its tawfiq and dua for Sheikh Amin and everyone involved in this work, in the vision and the focus that leads us to fulfilling the vision of Darul Qasim. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam, Hafiz Zaman. Thank you for sharing those thoughts from an administrator's perspective. And I think what you'll also appreciate is a little bit unique about a place like Darul Qasim College is our administrators, our faculty are all speaking from the same vision. I think many of you as Muslims living in America for many years have appreciated that any organization that we attempt to start, one of the critical features that we miss and what often leads to much controversy within almost every organization is a lack of consistency in vision. And one of the things hopefully that you'll get from this presentation, if nothing else, is the consistency of the attachment to the vision from the board, from the faculty, and from the staff. And so with that in mind, I want to take you through a little bit of a view into the future of Darul Qasim College. So we don't really hide this. You have a hard time walking into the building. If you didn't see this outside, please look at it on your way out. But our motto at Darul Qasim is in the quest for more knowledge. This is not subtle. This is not something that we try to hide. It's something that we try to display, and it's something that we try to live by. When we say in the quest for more knowledge at Darul Qasim, we're referring to 4 critical components. It's not just a willy-nilly quest. It's not something that we're going through just based on emotion, but it is something that is consistent. It's at all places and at all times. And the notion that Muslims must seek this knowledge in all of those places, that is one component of our quest for more knowledge. Another component is that knowledge must be structured. Maulana Bilal could have spoken to us for 2 or 3 hours about the structure of the knowledge that is being conveyed here. But it must be structured. And again, what we suffer from tremendously is that often the knowledge that is conveyed is in pieces. It's in parts, it's in weekends. It's the idea that this knowledge that we claim as Muslims can actually be learned in a realistic way that way. To be very fair, this is categorically false. It's just not true. Any knowledge that comes to bear fruits in any realm of our lives has to be structured. And that's what all of us have experienced. For some reason, when it comes to Islamic knowledge, Muslims think that we can shortcut that. The reality is that we can't. It has to have structure. The other component is it must have authenticity. And the way that we establish that authenticity is on the walls of Darul Qasim in the charts that we track through our teachers all the way back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. that we can actually trace a human chain back to the source of this knowledge. And that authenticity is critically important for conveyance of this knowledge. And then the last piece that you've probably understood by now very clearly as students at Darul Qasim is that there's a continuum of learning and teaching. Some of us have been trying to learn for over 30 years from Sheikh Amin, and even there, I dare say, before this presentation this morning when I met with him, there were things that I did not understand in this presentation. The reason I raise that to all of you is to understand that this is a lifelong commitment that we have to make to learning. And Darul Qasim, when we say in the quest for more knowledge, these are the components that we mean. So with that in mind, Darul Qasim College currently has these 7 departments. A Department of Theology, Islamic Law, Quranic Recitation, Quranic Exegesis, a Department of Hadith, Arabic and what we call Instrumental Islamic Sciences, and a Department of Humanities. And these departments are the key constituents to what we have currently in place as Darul Qasim College. What we want to grow into and what our vision is to grow into Darul Qasim University. Now, I would start by distinguishing in the mainstream when we refer to a university versus a college, often that distinction is based on the idea of graduate studies versus undergraduate studies. A college is typically thought of as a place where undergraduate studies are emphasized. A university is a place where graduate studies are emphasized. When we speak about Darul Qasim University, there's a slightly different context that we're talking about. What we're describing here, a vision that we're describing, is the idea of a jamia. A university in the Islamic sense, in the Islamic discipline sense, is that we can corral all of the disciplines under one institution. And that is done through a combination of a series of colleges, what we call kulliyat. So an Islamic university, if it really wants to claim that title, needs to be able to cover all of the disciplines and all of the branches of knowledge that were bequeathed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So our focus is to become Darul Qasim University in this sense, in the sense of really being a single institution that can oversee and serve as a single umbrella for all of these branches of knowledge. But our way of getting there, our means of getting there right now, is to focus on building 4 colleges. So what would those colleges be? The first is that our current Department of Theology would grow into a College of Theology. Our current Department of Islamic Law would grow into a College of Law and Governance. That the disciplines that we have as they relate to the Quranic disciplines would grow into a College of Quran, and Maulana Bilal's Department of Hadith would grow into a College of Hadith. Now again, this may sound like a very simple task. You simply grow, you add some faculty, you add some administrators, and this happens. But to appreciate, just to grow one college, if we were to think about, take the Department of Islamic Law and grow it into a College of Law and Governance, these are some of the topics that that college would need to be able to cover. It would need to be able to cover the idea of a Department of Executive Governance. For us, it would be, what is the role of the Hakim to facilitate the practice of the Sunnah for Muslims? All of the disciplines related to governance in terms of how that then would apply into a context of Muslims living in a non-Muslim land, Muslims living in a Muslim land, the variety of political structures that would be there, all through the lens of executive governance. You could do something very similar. You would have to have a Department of Judicial Sciences. What is the role of the Qadi? How would you develop judges? How would you develop judges as Muslims live in a non-Muslim land, as Muslims living in a Muslim land? How would you actually go about doing that? Can you provide all of the knowledge necessary to create and to train these people? A Department of Legal Sciences, a Department of Hisbah. Not just enjoining good and forbidding evil as a slogan, but how would you actually execute this? What are the foundations of how to do this effectively? These are just some of the departments that we would need to build to create a College of Law and Governance. And then we also would have to have certain contextual sciences, contextual disciplines. We would have to have political science. We would have to understand international relations. We have currently the Dal Ifta that Maulana Bilal described. We have a group that is tackling certain issues in legal ethics. We would also need to train contextual experts with a foundation in these Islamic disciplines. And these are some of the supplementary programs that we've already begun in bioethics and business ethics and technology. And then we would have to apply all of this at a local, national, and international level. If all of this feels a bit overwhelming to all of you, it should, which is why we need a faculty, and that's why we have to expand our faculty. But what I would reassure you of is Darul Qasim is really uniquely positioned to be able to actually execute on this plan. It is the same plan in many shapes and sizes that Sheikh Amin shared and has shared in pieces over the last 30 or 40 years. For many of us that have been associated with Darul Qasim or its predecessors, what we observe now is simply the manifestation of that plan. What we're trying to clue all of you into is what that plan looks like. And again, we hope that you appreciate the complexity of this, the depth of work that needs to be done to be able to accomplish this. What does this mean in very practical terms from a board's perspective, as a board member and as my fellow board members? This is what we grapple with, and this is what we kind of lose sleep over. How will we create a private university that can support 400 to 500 students enrolled? Just from a basic infrastructure, the ceiling tiles aside, that we would need to have a facility that is 2 to 3 times the size of our current facility. Alhamdulillah, we are incredibly grateful for the support we've received and our ability to function in this facility. But as Hafiz Naman described, with the number of classes and the number of students that we're supporting, we are very nearly at capacity in this facility already. I would share with you that we actually have a waiting list for our Sheikh al-Hind program this year. So many people a few years ago asked us, where are you going to find students? And I remember sitting in certain sessions with Sheikh Amin where people would ask him this question and he would politely smile or maybe chuckle a bit and say, the problem will not be finding students. The problem will be for us to be able to support those students. To borrow, I think, everyone's favorite line, if we build it, they will come. And I think that's exactly what we're witnessing right now. The reality is what we have to build is bigger. And we have students who want to learn. And I think that is a big sign of Allah's fadl, Allah's rahmah on this ummah, that we still have people who really want to pursue this knowledge. We will need to build and support our faculty and staff. When we describe these as departments right now, many of our departments consist of maybe 1 or 2 faculty members. The realistic ability to develop those into colleges means that we have to be able to recruit, we also have to be able to develop additional faculty members. Hafiz Naman spoke to the increasing pressure on us to build our HR, our IT, our building capabilities. And just coming Monday, we have a new member of our administrator staff who will be focused on developing what we hope will grow into something called Darul Qasim Press. For us to effectively be able to distribute the knowledge that is being taught at a place like Darul Qasim, we also need to be able to publish and to put that work forward. What many of you may not appreciate is that the Islamic Studies world in the United States of America is dominated not by Muslims, but by non-Muslims. And many of our faculty have faced significant difficulties when they write books, papers of the highest quality, and the referral or the review that they will receive from mainstream journals or publishers is that we will not accept this work because you only quote Muslim authors. Now think about that for a moment. You only quote Muslim authors. So the reality is that a big part of what we are trying to do is to reclaim this knowledge, to reclaim both the authority over this knowledge, the structure of this knowledge, but also the ability to bring it forward in a genuine, truthful way. If you were to sit and ask yourself one very basic question, that in every commercial that you see on TV or every common discourse that's occurring right now, is there one inherently Islamic idea in that discourse right now? Just one inherently original idea that is based on Islam in any of those conversations. And if the answer is no, I also ask you to ask yourself, why is that? If we have so many Muslims and we have so much wealth and we have so much education, how come it is that we have not been able to bring forward one idea into a fruitful mainstream discourse? And I dare say it's because we have not been committed to this knowledge. And perhaps it's not that we have not been able to convey from a genuine Islamic knowledge perspective an idea that is at the level that actually would have that impact. In order to do that, we must have institutions. It's very simple. And again, this is part of what we wanted to introduce you to. And the fact of the matter is the reason that you're sitting here is because you appreciate that knowledge already. Our current revenue sources predominantly come from folks like yourselves through donations. That's where the majority of our ability to function comes from. We also have a growing endowment fund that, again, we have been trying to develop and to grow along the lines of how you would do it for either a waqf or for a university or a college. Even before Darul Qasim existed, and this is part of what I want you all to appreciate, is that we have been able to obtain grants from some of the leading granting institutions in the country. Places like the John Templeton Foundation have granted money to Darul Qasim because of the quality of its scholarship, not because the Illinois Board of Higher Education labeled us a college. Now, this is almost a unique circumstance where a granting agency will give money to an unaccredited institution. And the reason they do it is they recognize the quality of the scholarship that exists at Darul Qasim. And lastly, again, is the tuition from our students. And I think as we grow, as the number of students grow, this again as a source of income will increase. My intent as a board member to share all of this with you is to say that we have accomplished a significant amount. There is a tremendous amount that I view that we will accomplish, inshallah, with Allah's fadl in the next 3 to 5 years. We really humbly request your support for that. I think all of you are aware it is not Darul Qasim's style to request funds in a very boisterous or sort of, in a way, we won't hold you hostage. We won't provide you tafsir today if you don't give any money. But what we will do is we'll humbly ask that you do please remember us in your du'as, as Hafiz Naman requested. Remember in your du'as for the success and the acceptance of this work on behalf of the board members, on behalf of Sheikh Amin, on behalf of the faculty, the staff, the students, all of the well-wishers and all the patrons of this organization, of this institution. And then lastly, if you are able to provide us any support, please go. There's a box on the corner, not the box from the water, but the box on the side for the donations. Please feel free to drop some money in there, but more importantly, go to the website, become a regular donor, think about your circles of people, share this idea and this vision with them. And with that, we will end this part of the presentation, and we have about 5 minutes to take any questions or clarifications that you might have. Jazakallah khair. For questions?
So, where should someone start?
The question for those who couldn't hear was, if you're new to Darul Qasim, where should you start? In the first place you start is handing the mic to someone who knows the answer.
I think this is also sort of known to all within the organization. Our entry-level program is the Sheikh al-Hind program, and it's appropriately named the Sheikh al-Hind because Sheikh al-Hind as an individual represented sort of the gateway to knowledge and sort of the father of a lot of scholarship that came out of Darul Uloom. And so for pretty much everyone other than those who are not able to enter into the Sheikh al-Hind program, we have the Islamic Essentials online course. The entry level program is the Sheikh al-Hind full-time, or the equivalent, I shouldn't call it equivalent, but a similar program that we offer part-time, either in the evenings or on the weekends. So that would be the first step. Any others? Yes. Like said,
I just wanted to understand how you guys think about like the balance between like the donations and the endowment strategy, and like let's say someone donates like $100, what portion of that are we targeting towards
The financial planning question, sort of short-term versus long-term, how do we balance that? The way that we have our budgeting process is a combination. So we have tried to expand the base of our donations primarily through the mechanism of our regular donors. And humble, we've had a lot of success at doing that. And the intent is that we could grow that to take care of our year-to-year demands. Anything beyond that, some of our larger donations and some of the other things are what we push into the endowment fund. So the surplus beyond that. But again, I think there was a slide earlier that Hafiz Ahmad did not get a chance to talk to. This gives you a sense of what we're operating on. So if you look in the lower corner of this, Darul Qasim, our yearly budget is somewhere on the order of about $1.5 million. For an institution of this size, and certainly as we grow a little bit bigger, even if you're talking a very simple a seminary, that budget is typically about 10 million. To build a college is anywhere from 90 to more like 150 million. So we are operating on a very tight budget, and Humble have been able to execute very well on that. We have to build that base, but if you're, so I would say in general, from what we're getting in donations and what we're putting towards the endowment, right now it's about 90-10. We hope to shift that down as time goes by. But please give the $100 even if you can. Again, I think the other thing to appreciate, what Sheikh Amin taught us a long time ago, is that our job is to do the work, and we've all observed that if we do this work, whenever the need for the resources arises, like we've built the institution, the money comes, subhanAllah. And we've seen it so many times. The building that you're sitting in right now, I would just share the story that when we originally looked at this building to purchase it quite a few years ago, the cost of that building was $3.5 million. For whatever reason, there was a recession and so on. When we actually had the resources and we actually were interested in purchasing it, the purchase price came down to 1.75. So again, what we see in front of us sometimes is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in plan for us. The bottom line is, please don't underestimate the giving of even that $1 or those $2. What we've observed is the ikhlas that comes with that donation is really what carries the day. I mean, that's really what that's what's built this place, where you're sitting right now. So again, I think we've observed that so many times. So we ask, but we also don't worry that much. Alhamdulillah. Maybe with that, we will just allow for, we will end this session now. We'll allow just for a couple of minutes break. Sheikh Amin's tafsir, what usually occurs at the 11 o'clock hour, will be coming up in about 5 minutes, inshallah. So please feel free to walk around. Oh, and the last thing is that there are some board members here that are available after Sheikh's tafsir. If you've not had a chance to tour the building, they will be available to provide some tours of the building as well, for those of you that might be visiting from out of town this weekend, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.